Are you set for us to go now, Henry?
Yes, we're all set.
Okay, this is the Zoning Board of Appeals for January 12th, 2022. We have a reasonably short agenda. We just have minutes, 21 Bel Air Drive and 45 Northfield Avenue to deal with. In terms of the minutes, it's John, me, and
Me. The three of us were.
I don't see John on yet, or is he?
There he is.
He's there.
There he is. Okay. Are there any changes besides Valerie? I'm not sure if you took a look at the minutes, but the resolution Liz has as part of the minutes, and Bruce making a resolution, which didn't happen. And so I think we've got to move the resolution to the back and delete that Bruce Gambos made the resolution, and instead add that Gambos motion moved that the application be granted, John seconded, and all voted in favor. And then insert the resolution after the adjournment time. And that way everything is together, but at least it's accurate as to what happened at the meeting.
Okay.
Will you pass that along to Liz, or would you like me to?
No, I can pass it along to Liz.
Okay, and we should be doing it that way in the future.
Okay.
Also, just a series of typos on page 21, right above the tally box at the bottom. Clinton Avenue for proposed plans to construct. In addition, there's just 3 or 4 misspelled words there.
Okay. What I'll do is I'll go through those on page 21. I'll identify them and then have Liz update them. And then you can vote on the minutes pending the amendments or changes that you just spoke about.
Yep. All in favor of adopting the minutes with the changes?
Aye.
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 Okay, I think that's it. That's all of us.
Yep.
And we move on to 21 Bel Air. Who will be heard on this application? Are they not here yet? I must confess that I spent a great deal of my early adulthood in that house.
You did?
Yes, drinking a lot of rum drinks and eating a lot of soft shell, soft crack clams.
That's crazy.
Wow.
And occasionally we made a bit of a mess. mixing drinks with the top off the mixer had gotten that bad.
There's no evidence anymore that happened.
Can you hear us?
Yes, we hear you fine.
Okay. Okay, so, and is that how this works? We just start speaking and introduce ourselves and that sort of thing?
Yes,
Okay.
do that and then walk us through the project. We do have plans in front of us to help guide things along.
Okay, and are we able to share a screen with plans, or you just look at what's in front of you?
You could share the screen too if you'd like.
Okay.
Right now we don't have you on video. We just have you
Yeah.
on audio.
And
Hi.
Katie, you are on mute as of right now.
Hi, this is Lori Kaplan and John Bortz. We just went down to Village Hall to come to the meeting. We never got a notification that it was going to be on Zoom. We thought it was hybrid. We also had some pictures we wanted to share, so a little bit distressed that there was no communication, that we would not be able to do that.
Sorry about that.
Okay, so I see I have video now. My name is Dan Cantelmo. I'm the architect for the project, representing Jay and Katie, who are also on the screen. Therese from my office is here someplace, but maybe she can share her screen. We're doing a few different things to the property with you can see like a new retaining wall in the back, which is in distress right now. Building into the existing covered porch, which is attached to the back of the house now, which is open, and we're filling it in with living space. And then adding a deck to the back of the house. The house is currently non-conforming because of the setbacks on 3 sides, front and both sides. So it seems any new living space that we would be adding or enclosing would require the variance, and that's what we're looking for. So what it comes down to is a variance to enclose the back porch because, again, it's proximity to this side property line. And so that's what the variance is for.
And also the deck that's being added.
So the deck does not appear to require a variance.
It only does to the extent that we're extending the nonconformity on both the north and the south sides.
Except that the deck does meet the setbacks on both sides. So we were not asking for a variance for the deck.
The deck is into the setback on the side. You show it on your plan in the setback.
Yeah, sheet S3. On the north side, it looks like the deck extends beyond the setback line.
On S3?
S3, Stephen 3.
Yeah, on the right-hand side.
Well, okay, sorry, but that's the building setback line, but a deck has to be at least 5 feet off of that property line. I'm sorry, yeah, the deck has to be 5 feet off of that line, and it is 5 feet off of the line. The building setback has to be 10 feet.
The deck is the same as the building setback.
Teresa, are you able to speak to that?
I don't think Teresa's on as far.
Oh, there she is.
Okay, she
I'm
just.
so sorry. I didn't realize I had to raise my hands to come into the meeting.
Right, so what are the exceptions in the zoning with the deck requirement?
Yes, and so one moment. Okay, so when we saw in your code, it's under the Article 9 zoning districts and map, where it says permitted projections into required setbacks. And under C for porches, it says that there's 5 different areas, and as long as you meet those 5 different areas, that the porch can go over the setback without needing a variance. And the first one being that it doesn't project more than 50% or 10 feet, whichever is less into any setbacks. So since the setback is 10 and we're doing the 5, we do meet that requirement.
But this is a deck, it's not a porch. A porch in the definition is covered. The deck is not.
So it does say porch, unenclosed, one-story porch may project.
Correct.
So
Right.
unenclosed.
Not a deck.
So what would be the difference in an unenclosed
One
porch
would
versus a
have,
deck?
What you currently have.
in the one section, and then the deck protrudes into the setback. And that's not a covered open porch. That's a deck.
So is there a way to define a deck from a porch?
In our definition, it is in there. It's a deck, a porch would be covered, open. And a deck is a deck with no cover, or it's open. No
Definitions
wall.
aside, do you have any issue with requesting a variance for the deck?
No,
Because that's what the denial.
no,
letter is
it
written.
just seemed that a porch is more invasive than a deck because it does have a cover. That's what was confusing. Why would a deck have a more restrictive setback than a porch, which has a roof on it?
In the vision plan, they wanted to promote porches on the front of houses, so a lot of them are within. So you could get them in more areas.
Okay.
That was the intent of that.
No, so there's really no issue with asking for the variance for the deck because the porch, which exists open, is closer to the property line than the deck would be anyway.
When can we speak? Because we had some concerns about this project. We're the next door neighbors. So can you let us know when that would be appropriate?
Yes, we'll call for that.
Okay.
For the applicants, are you finished talking? Or want to go into more details as to what you're proposing?
Sure. Do you want me to pull up the drawings?
Yeah, why don't you do that? That might be helpful so that the neighbors know exactly what is being proposed.
Okay. Is that visible? Everyone?
It's actually blurry for some reason.
Is that any better?
Not really. But Therese, why don't we just go to the other drawings anyway, just so that they can see I mean, the board has the drawings, so
Yes, we've got, this is
Um,
really for the neighbors.
right, so the gray box in that area is the existing porch that is within the setback. Okay, and then maybe the back, which just shows, again, it's just it's the same roof line. We're not building anything onto the structure of the house for the addition. It's going underneath the existing roof line.
Correct. There's not a problem with that. Like I said, you're going
Yeah.
for the variance for the deck.
Is the, on the view, the partial right side elevation, the last window on the right that you see, the one you have there, that is, does that exist now or is that open on the side?
This right now is an open porch.
That's
So
open.
we're building the wall and putting the window.
That's being closed off, okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
But the roof line basically stays the same?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So for the board, do you have any other questions about that?
I'm pretty good with things. Anyone else have questions before we open it up for the neighbors?
Peter, I don't have questions, but I do think we should just better define before we open up to the neighbors what the variance is for, since it's only a limited variance. I just want to make sure it's clear for the record what the request is.
Yeah, okay. Let me read. The required minimum side yard setback is 10 feet. The proposed is a setback of 4 feet, 3 inches, thus requiring a variance. The required minimum both side yards is 25 feet, and the proposed setback is 10 feet, 8 inches, again, requiring a variance. I would note at this stage that, that the house is already non-conforming, and what these variances are for is to extend the non-conformity on the north side of the house.
Mhm.
I believe there's no further extension of the nonconformity on the south side of the house. And there's no variance needed on the west side of the house.
And I don't see in the table and I can't read the plan clearly enough, what the amount of the extension on the north side of the nonconformity is.
It's 4 feet, 4 inches, 4 feet, 3 inches
Thank you, Peter.
is what is provided. And 10 feet is what the code says.
And what is it currently? That's,
It's currently 4 feet, 3.
so it's the same.
It's the same, yes. Yes, so it's an extension of it. It's
Yeah.
not an addition.
Just to be clear, and when you say an extension, it's not an extension of the physical structure, it's just continuing
It's continuing the same line.
the same line.
Right.
Thank you. And I would also add that most of the houses of this age were built before we had a zoning code. And so as a result, they were built where they were built. They were not built to be conforming to a zoning code that had not yet been adopted. And so why don't we open it up to the neighbors at this point?
You're muted.
There you go.
Okay, my name is John Bortz, and this is Lori Kaplan. We live next door to 21 Bel Air. We're in 25 Bel Air, and we've been living here for 30 years. We're currently, because these houses were built before and are non-conforming, our property is 4 feet from the property line, and so is their property. So even though it sounds like it's just an extension of the existing property line or non-conforming line, enclosing the porch means enclosing a structure that is 4 feet from the property line and is 8 feet from the windows on the south side of our house. Now, if the south side of our house were an area where there was a staircase, it would be irrelevant because nobody would ever be hanging out in that part of the house. But the south side of our house happens to be our family room connected to the kitchen. It's probably where we spend 90% of our time. And we have a wall of windows. I have a whole bunch of pictures here that I was planning to bring to show you this evening, but when we got there and it said there was no hybrid meeting, we couldn't go in. So I would like to invite you all to come over to our property before making a decision and take a look at what I'm talking about. Because we spend 90% of our time in that room. And that room, the windows in that room are going to be 8 feet away from the proposed deck that's going to be built. And we're going to be having those windows open, and we're going to be hearing whatever noise is happening on that deck. And I would much prefer, infinitely prefer, to, maintain some privacy and some sanctity. We're very close. As a matter of fact, when I drive up and down these blocks, I can't find two houses that are as close as the north side of 21 Bel Air and the south side of 25 Bel Air. If you look at the neighbors just south of them, they have probably twice the distance between their house. So what I had asked Jay and Katie to do when they were considering this project would be to consider decentering their deck so that it would be closer to the people who are south of them, because then they would still have 15 to 20 feet between their houses and the deck, as opposed to putting it on the north side of the property, which is going to put it close to 8 feet or 9 feet from our family room. And if any of you were here and you were sitting in our family room, you would see that you would just be looking out the window right at their deck, and any noise on the deck would just be right in your face. And I, regardless of what the zoning laws say and what the setbacks say, their porch is non-conforming. So enclosing that would be to enclose a structure, again, 8 feet from our wall. And secondly, there should be some consideration, again, regardless, in my opinion, of the zoning laws, to having some respect for your neighbors. We happen to like Jay and Katie a lot, and we think they're entitled to amend their house to make it more comfortable. But I think that change should be done with respect for the neighbors and for the result that that change is going to have on the neighbors. Putting something 8 feet from their window in a room that they use all the time, it's really not a respectful or what I consider to be a reasonable thing to allow to happen.
Could you show us some of the pictures?
I would have shown them all to you, but I don't know how to show them to you. They're not on the computer. They're, I had them printed out and I had them labeled and everything.
Can you not?
Come up to the camera.
Up?
I
Pretty
can,
blurry.
there won't be as crisp, I guess. I can show you some. Maybe you'll tell me whether or not you can make them out. You make anything out by looking at it this way? That's the distance. That's the south facing wall of our house and the north facing wall of their house with a couple of trees in between. 8 feet. And the windows, I don't know if you can see them. So on ground level is a garage. Above that is our family room. The windows are looking right at their porch.
What's the height of the window sills of your windows relative to their porch?
Well,
In other words, are you uphill from them?
Yes.
Yeah, slightly. When Jay tends to work in the summer on his back porch, which is currently uncovered, and I can hear everything he says.
And he can probably hear everything you say as well.
Yeah, except
Yeah.
I'm not on a phone out there.
So I guess my point is that when you're in your living room and you're seated, sorry, you're really not seeing a person seated on their porch.
Here's my living room. I don't know if you can see it because again, we're not in person, but there's a couch there.
Right.
When I sit on that couch, I'm looking directly at his porch when I'm sitting on that couch.
If you're sitting at the window looking down, I assume.
Excuse me, could we have the applicant speak to the board
Sure. Sure.
and the neighbors speak to the board? We're not having neighbors speak to applicants.
And along that line, I would be interested in hearing from either the architect or the applicant as to whether they have considered the options suggested by the neighbor and why if they did, why they didn't follow those options. And if they didn't, would they consider those options?
So I can answer that question. I think only the building inspector of this group would know that we had already submitted plans for a variance. And we didn't make it to the board because Jay and Katie did speak to both of their neighbors based on the previous application. And that was to put a deck along the entire property line to the north and adding an addition to the south, requiring variances on both sides of their homes. And after listening to both their neighbors, they backed off of the one addition to the south completely and decided to close in the porch because that was a more amenable way to solve that problem. And instead of having the deck running along the entire property line on the north, they folded it in against the house so that it was not affecting the neighbors to the north nearly as much because 50% of the deck in that direction got smaller. To the point of the porch, if the porch is open now, closing it in surely makes it quieter than it currently is. And once you do that, we don't feel that it's, we're trying to be fair to everybody. And I think what they did was they bent over backwards to listen to both neighbors and completely change their application to make this a smaller project, one that is less invasive on either side of the neighbors. So we had already considered a different type of deck and addition, and this was a far better solution.
Well, the question I think the applicant needs to address is what, we have to do a balancing test, and it's not comparing this to what you wish you could have done. It's you have to explain to us why you need a variance and why the benefit that you're seeking couldn't be achieved by doing something that conforms to the setbacks. And I think the answer might be different for the enclosing the porch and the deck. I think, it looks like an extremely large deck, and it's hard to see, why it has to necessarily go so close to the neighbors. Why that isn't something that you could, why we should grant any variance for that purpose. And I think you also have to convince us that there's a need for the variance as to the enclosure also.
Okay, so we should probably address them as two separate issues, because closing in the porch seems to be something that makes the situation as far as noise better than it currently is. They have a very small kitchen, they have a very small living room, and building onto this porch clearly makes that a better situation for them. And building onto the porch, again, we're following an existing structure, the existing roof, and closing it in. It doesn't seem to be a big ask. I mean, this is what we do, obviously, is represent clients and ask for variances. And, in my opinion, this was a simple one as far as closing in a porch that's already there. That's in line with the house. The deck could be shifted, but the issue is that the back porch as it exists is a full story above the ground. So if you're in and out of your house and entertaining, that's where you will be, as opposed to climbing down a full flight of stairs onto the backyard, which is also small because it's at the top of a plateau, and then it's just a steep slope all the way down to the road at the other side of the property. So you would just have to make choices. And the choice is, do we go for a variance on one side, or do we go for a variance on two sides, or do we just switch the deck as the neighbors are suggesting and ask for a variance on the opposite side, which doesn't really help the applicant because it puts the deck adjacent to a one-story flat roofed garage, which is very awkward to say the least. Or you're simply just making what would be a very useful deck for someone to have a table and chairs and a small sitting area into a deck that's smaller. So there's only a few options out there.
Well, what's the width of the proposed deck?
30 feet.
And the length,
And what would it need to be if it were within the current setback?
25 feet.
It would be 4 feet shorter, right?
Yeah.
I mean, 4 feet narrower. I mean, that still seems like a very good sized deck.
Yeah,
It is. We did do a furniture layout.
a little farther deep.
I'm sorry?
You could make it less wide and a little farther deep. And that way it would all be within the setbacks.
The issue to that is just that we have very limited yard space. It's because of just the situation on this hill. We really only have, a patch of grass back there. And so having the deck be slightly wider and not deeper is a better way for us to be able to use the property. And, we're hoping to preserve that, grassy area to the greatest extent we can as a usable contiguous yard. And to be able to enclose our porch, we really, as our architect proposed, we really think enhances the property, the privacy between the properties. As to the deck, if we're 4 feet, further over, I don't understand that there's going to be some difference in the decibel level that actually affects our neighbors who are, above. They're not looking down at us. They'd be looking down at us either way if they were up at their window looking down. But for us to have, enough space on the deck, because we're losing outdoor space by enclosing the porch, which we understand requires a variance, and the purpose of doing it in the first place is to get more livable space inside. And to have a reasonable deck that mirrors the property line, the structure lines, we just think is what makes a lot of sense. And we did this, as Dan mentioned, after significant consultation with our neighbors and significant modifications to come up with a plan that we really think is fair to both sides and allows us to get the right use and enjoyment of our space.
Mr. Gutman mentioned before that it's a balancing act. And obviously, the neighbor on one of your sides didn't like the balance you struck. And
Yeah.
it's also obvious that a 25-foot wide deck is a good sized deck. I mean,
I would
there are a
just
lot of
add,
houses that aren't in this village that aren't 25 feet wide to begin with.
I
So,
just want to make clear to Bruce's comment, though, that it's not whether or not your neighbor likes it or not. That's not the balancing act that we go through.
Sure.
The question is not, okay, your neighbor doesn't like it. That happens all the time. It's a question in the balancing test of whether or not there's a detriment to neighboring properties. And given the proximity of the two properties, that's the concern that the board has. Is there a detriment to neighboring properties? And can the benefit that you're trying to achieve be achieved by another method? That's
Right.
the balancing act that we as a board have to do, not, just your neighbors don't like it. So to be clear, I think that's what Mr. Gombos is trying to reach is there a way to achieve what you want without the detriment to the neighboring property? And making sure that we've heard that you've tried to accomplish that, John.
Mr. Monte clarified that very well. Thank you, John, Paul.
And I think I'd like to ask the architect, have you talked about screening off the north side of the deck?
We did.
And putting in plantings that would enable the neighbors to have a degree of privacy.
Yeah. So, yes, we did. So I didn't speak directly to the neighbors, but I did mention this to Jay and Katie. And so we would be willing to do that. I think, though, we would want to speak to the neighbors about this, because what we don't want to do is build a screen, like we talked about, literally building a screen on the porch.
Yep.
But we don't want to build a screen so tall that it blocks their view, because from this section of the deck that is in the setback, my clients have the best view of the river. And so do, I'm assuming, the neighbors from their window. So we didn't want to build something that was 8 feet tall that then blocked their window. So it was something we thought we could discuss, during building plans, because it would not affect the variance. But it's something that we would be willing to do, is build it at the appropriate height that when you're sitting on my client's deck, the neighbors to the north don't see them from their windows. They're going to hear them either way, whether we move the deck 2 feet closer or 4 feet farther away. They're going to hear the same sounds, just as my clients hear them. It's the same thing. So we'd definitely be willing to do that. And we also wanted to be able to show you an aerial view of this as well, if we could share that screen, that just might add a little bit of context
Sure.
to,
One
and
moment.
Therese can do that. There's a pretty clear map online that shows, for better or for worse, at least it'll give you better context.
Dan, is that image showing up?
Not yet. Sometimes I take a minute. There you go.
There we go.
Okay, so Jay and Katie's house is the one right in the middle, and the porch steps are sort of reddish coming down. The deck would be pretty much the shadow that you see there.
Right.
And the windows that the neighbors are speaking of are not quite in the view, obviously on the side. They also have windows to the rear, and they have a deck further over, which is sort of tucked in. So if they're on their deck, they're not really interacting with my clients on their deck.
I think it also gives you a
You
good
should have-
view
ask-
of
ask
how,
them when you can do
how
it.
close these two houses are in this picture.
They are very close, and you can also see that
Approximately, what is the difference in elevation from between the two houses, the first floors and second floors?
A couple of feet.
Two-ish?
Yeah,
Is
two.
that-
That's why I said when we're sitting on our couch, we're looking at their porch.
I think it's a little more than two, but
yeah, it looks like it's quite a bit more, because if you look at the windows on the back of the neighbor's house and you wrap the corner, they're almost in line with the windows in the dormers, which is almost a story up. And I know there's a retaining wall between them as you go further back, which is 6 or more feet tall, where they have another deck built into the hill.
You know, it's great to go through all the details and the drawings and describing it, but if you were here and you were sitting in our family room, you would see exactly how close we are and how we see each other. And I do feel that although we have talked to Jay and Katie, and I know they don't want to upset anybody, and they've made that very clear, there are other ways they could have designed this that would not affect us, where basically this 8 feet is what we're talking about. We're so close. They could have decided, and I don't know, they don't want to do it. They could have opened their kitchen into their living room and extended out on the south side. I don't know whether these neighbors on the other side were more convincing. I don't understand that, because there's a lot more space on that side than on our side. But there are other ways they could do it. They could have the deck on the south side. But they have chosen to continue to do this plan. They have shortened the deck, which we appreciate, but it doesn't change the fact that we are so close.
I think the plan, really, we're talking about the deck, though. We're not really talking about the kitchen. And closing it in is, there's absolutely no difference. There's a porch, and you take an open porch and you put a wall up and a window. There's no difference in that, except that
Point is that they would get more space that way. They're looking for more space in their house, which I understand. If they'd opened the kitchen and the living room, went out over the garage, extended out on the south side of the house for the deck, they would have a lot more space. I appreciate that's not what they want, but what they want does affect us.
So again, I think we should just focus on the deck because the discussion about the room is much more complicated. The addition that you're talking about is much more expensive, probably twice as expensive to build an addition on top of an old garage compared to building into an existing porch. That also makes the house look better. It sits better. It puts the windows where they want them. So I don't think that that's really worth discussing. I think it has more to do with the deck and its location than anything.
Can I ask a couple of questions? I'd like to try to understand the difference in the environmental impact. And I think this is getting at what our task is to look at what's the difference in the impact between the proposed and the existing. The concern now is that you hear your neighbors speaking, and that there is less of a visual impact from your house than there will be when the deck is added. Is that right? You have a noise problem that you have a concern with currently. Is that, let's just start there. That's the concern you have. One of them is noise. And then the other one, I believe you said, was that the enclosure of the porch caused another impact. And I think you're saying that the addition of the deck and having the deck where it is, even though it's no closer or no further away from your house than the existing open porch, that would cause, I guess, another adverse impact. Just looking for clarity on those things. Are they still here? Did we lose the neighbors?
All right, I just promote, I put them back to attendees because I just wanted to leave it just for the applicants. So they didn't continue to kind of overspeak the applicants or the rest of the board.
I'm sorry,
you'd like-
I can come back.
If you'd like me to promote them back, I will.
Bring them back so that.
Did you were you able to hear my questions? You are muted.
There you go. Not really.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I can restate it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand what the difference in the impact is between the existing condition and the proposed condition for you. I just want to circle back to this. You have a noise issue now because you can hear your neighbor talk on the phone and do business and I guess socialize on the porch. What will happen in the new condition is that porch will be enclosed, and then a deck will be built where you presumably you'll hear the people on the deck. The deck is there's a visual impact of the deck that you're objecting to, and you're objecting to the enclosure of the existing open porch. So those are the things that you're concerned about. Is that right?
Yes. Right? Yes.
Say
Okay.
that.
But the noise issue is there, do you foresee a difference in the noise issue between the two different conditions?
I don't think so. I
I
don't think
do.
the noise is really, I mean,
No, I do.
well, my husband does. I don't know.
If I could just speak to that, I mean, the place where John hears me talking on the phone on the porch is going to be enclosed and be my new breakfast table where I'll be inside
Yeah.
most of the time. I mean, I don't see how that's anything other than enhancing the privacy.
It's
And-
to me, it's not that. It's not the noise. It's just the closeness. The houses will be on top of each other.
Well,
And
the houses are already on top of each other. It's the same. It's just that we would have an opportunity to use outdoor space in our backyard in a place that is close to your house. We understand that. And the situation of the two homes, we obviously can't do anything about. But, we we modified the plans significantly after our consultations with you guys. And in particular, Lori, you like to sit on your deck and didn't want to see us, deep in our backyard. And so we shortened the depth of the deck tremendously by like twice as much, and just turned it so that it's going to be flush to the house and keeping exactly in line with the structure. It just seems to make so much both aesthetic and use and enjoyment sense in this new plan that we also think is privacy enhancing to that large extent, because we're going to be enclosing that porch where I'd otherwise, have to be outside.
Yes,
So-
but we definitely appreciate that you shorten the porch, but it doesn't change. The noise is not an issue, but you're enclosing your house. It makes your house that much larger, closer to us. In terms of looking down and looking out, we will now have that plus your deck. You're making your house much bigger, and you're making it much bigger, closer to us. If we were, a few feet more apart, we wouldn't be having this conversation at all.
Okay, I have the answers I was looking for. Thank you.
John, if you don't mind, I'd like to just, because you brought that up about what their concern was. It seemed that their concern initially was that they were seeing their deck from their deck. And that problem was resolved by making the deck smaller. And now the problem is that they would hear them.
No. That's not
And-
correct, Dan.
And I think
No,
when-
they're
when
correct.
Lori just mentioned,
Both parties should be talking to the board.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I just want to be clear that I just want to respond to something that Lori just said, which is that your house is getting bigger and getting closer to our house, and they're going to see it more because of closing in the porch. I think we all know that that's not correct. From their window, they're going to see, as far as the house goes, the exact same thing, right? They're going to see the exact same roof. Where there's a column there will now be the corner of a house. It's just going to be enclosed. The house did not get any closer. It's not impeding at all. It's the same thing, only better. So that's why I keep saying we should focus on the deck and not the house, because there is, in my opinion, zero impact on closing in the porch, except that it's a positive because we're closing it in. So if noise were an issue for that, this project is only making it better. We're only talking about whether a deck now creates more noise because it's 4 feet closer to the house than it might otherwise be, or that it looks bad because it's 4 feet closer. It's still the same deck. And I think from this view, we can clearly see that the neighbor's house is much higher, and they will be looking over the deck. If they're sitting down looking out, they won't even see this part of the deck. Not to mention, we would, as I said, be open to building a trellis type wall or something that would shield that side of the deck from the neighbors. It also appears from this photo that the neighbor's deck is about the same size as the one that we're proposing. So I don't know that what we're proposing is a big deck. We did do a furniture layout, and it fits exactly what my clients were hoping to do, which is be able to sit on it in one area and have a table and chairs on another area. When we make it smaller, it tightens that up to the point where it does change the layout, and you can't have the same 3 pieces of furniture to sit down on.
Understood. Thank you.
Yep.
Is there anyone else from the neighborhood that wishes to be heard?
I do.
Go ahead.
Am I allowed to address the board at this point?
I was actually asking if there were anyone else, but I don't believe anyone else has spoken, so you can go ahead.
Okay, I just don't like when things are presented in a way to, you know, to sway opinion in one direction or the other instead of factual. And for the architect to continually say that our house is much higher than their house is just misinformation, okay? And it's not correct. And the level of the windows in our family room are about 2 or 3 feet higher than the level of the bottom of the windows in their kitchen. We are looking right at the windows and the porch. So I want to just dispel the notion that we are significantly higher than them on the first level of our home.
The bottom of your windows is 2 to 3 feet different than the bottom of their windows?
Yeah, and well, yeah, they're 2 to 3 feet higher than the bottom of their windows.
Okay.
And when
Top,
you
the top maybe, but
no,
not the
no,
bottom.
not the top. I'm addressing the board now. They've asked us to address the board. And when you're standing in the family room, when you're sitting on the couch, you're looking right into their kitchen windows or onto their porch. It's just the way the houses are configured. Okay, if we didn't see anything, it wouldn't even be an issue. But that's the way the houses are configured. And to be honest with you,
Do you have some pictures that you can show us that show that better?
I don't know how well you can see it on here, but this is a picture looking out of the window from inside our family room. I don't know how well you can see it, but this is where my finger is their porch.
Hold it up higher a little bit.
Is it, I don't know if you can make it out this way, but I'm looking at their porch.
Okay.
And the top of the couch is right here. And the porch is right beyond it.
Right.
So I don't think there's a huge disparity in the height. That's the point I'm trying to make. And I just want to go back. I know for you guys, it's a balancing act. And I want to go back to the fact that it is a balancing act. And since there is so much more room on the south side of 21 Bel Air, Jay and Katie's house, than there is on the north side, it would just be more respectful if the deck was decentered further south away from the north property line where it's so close. And, you know, we have a deck on the back of our house off our kitchen that is decentered to the north side, and it's not seen, as the architect said, it's not seen from that by them. And there's no reason why this deck that they're proposing couldn't be decentered. If you came to the house and you actually took a look, we all have the same kind of views. Some of us, there are trees in the way of some of the views, and then there are some views that are unobstructed. And I really don't think that it makes a big difference whether you're on the north side of your property or the south side of your property. We all have spectacular views of the Palisades across the Hudson.
Look towards them.
We actually look down toward them to see the Palisades better. So I don't think that the views are significantly off. I think the real issue here is, what is the real downside in decentering the porch further south, where they have more room, where they're further away from the southern neighbor, so they can still have their porch, but they don't have to be so
Their deck,
close.
you mean their deck.
Their deck. So they still have their deck, but they don't have to be so close to their northern neighbor, which is the only thing we're really asking them, not to put the deck so close to our property line. And when you enclose the porch, and again, the architect says, well, I don't see any difference, it's going to make things better. You're building a wall where there isn't a wall now. So it's a difference. When you enclose a porch, it's a difference. I think we all know that. You may not be expanding the footprint of the porch, but you're building a wall. So now one of the windows from my family room will look out at a wall instead of looking out at a porch. So it's just not correct information to say there's absolutely no difference. All these things have impacts. Thank you.
Could I ask the applicant, and the neighbor could also address this, how will enclosing the porch affect the amount of light that is, light seen from the neighbor's house?
I don't think much.
0.
Well, yeah.
The sun is coming to the south, shining down on both the properties.
Yeah,
It,
You keep doing it.
I just can't see how it could affect any.
If it wasn't
the-
dark, you could zoom, but I don't think the light would have, that wouldn't be impacted at all.
We agree. I don't think the light would be affected.
Our roof is not changing, at all. One thing that this image does show, though, are the trees that go along the southern border of our property. So those trees are where, where John is saying we should be putting our deck. He's saying we should cut down those trees and push it further that way. And, we don't want to impact those trees and that aspect of things. And it's incorrect to say that the view is no different from any part of the backyard because of all those trees there. The view is best from, right where we share that property line. And, we would, if we're permitted, we would like to have our deck be right there. We just don't really see how those 4 feet, if we moved it 4 feet in, has any detrimental impact to them. Whereas to us, it just will make our backyard disjointed, and it will have the deck not match the rear of the house, which just doesn't make sense to us. And since enclosing the porch, we do stand with our architect that it just is going to make things more private. And, if they were going to look at our, nice window versus looking at the open air there that, leads to where the table that I sit at, I just don't see that as an actual impact. I think they want us to not be able to do any of this because they don't want us having, more use of our backyard. And we just don't think that's, an appropriate balance here.
I don't think that's
Well,
true.
well, Jay, that's not fair. We want you to.
Talk to us, please.
Okay, we certainly want them to use their backyard. We have no problem with them using it. Our simple request, I think my husband said it, is to have the deck on the side of the house where there's more space between the neighbors. That is our major request.
Is a privacy screen something that you would find advantageous for your purposes in terms of giving you some of the privacy that you'll be losing?
Maybe, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know whether it would be an obstruction or privacy, whether it would just feel like another wall is going up or whether it would feel private. And,
Anyone have any more questions? Or should we close and discuss?
Motion to close the hearing.
I'll second. All in favor? That's everyone.
thank you for listening.
So guys, what do you think? To me, in closing, the porch is not any kind of a major change. If anything, it'll give the neighbors a little bit more privacy because conversations will more likely be interior than exterior.
I would agree with that. It's not a volume change. It's not a, it's the same presence. And the enclosing of it appears to improve it and to at least improve the noise issue.
Right.
Improves the noise and improves the visual separation. So I think it's in terms of providing separation and privacy, it's a plus.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree with that too. I'm not I'm not so convinced that a case has been made for it being unfeasible to have either a smaller deck or a differently configured deck that doesn't need a variance. And I mean, it is true the difference for the neighbors might be slight, but I do think when the houses are as close together as these two are, a couple of feet can make a difference. And, I think mitigating the impact on the neighbors is a big consideration. And I think what we're required to look for is, not why would the applicant prefer to have exactly this size deck, but why do they need it to be as large as it is and to require the variance, because otherwise they can't enjoy their home or they can't enjoy this improvement. I think it'll be a very nice improvement, even if it's kept within the constraints of the setback rules.
Jeremy, I tend to agree with you. And if the applicant would like to do this, we could I would be okay with separating the two variances, voting on one and tabling the other so that the architect and the owner can consider options if they'd like more time to think about it. But again, that's just a personal opinion. May not be by any means the consensus of the board.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. As I look at the plans, moving the deck to the south, architecturally to me doesn't make sense, as opposed to it continuing along the lines of the house as proposed. So, I'm not sure that's an option. I do think building within the envelope would make more sense. I think the architect could consider pushing things out a little bit more to accomplish what they would by having the deck as proposed on the north side. They may not be able to recapture all the space, but I think they could recapture half the space.
The other issue with moving it further south is you do not want necessarily to cut down all those trees.
Right.
Trees are a plus.
Right. Trees are a plus, and the architectural integrity is a plus.
Exactly.
Anyone else on the board have any comments?
I would certainly support rethinking that edge of the deck to move it further away. Do I think that it significantly changes the adverse impact? I don't think it really does, not in that type of significant way that would typically cause this board to reject the application. But it certainly would help.
I would just add a project that's supported by the neighbor would also help as well.
Yeah.
So I guess I'd want to go back to the applicant and ask whether the applicant has any objection if we separated your two variance requests and acted on them separately.
Before we do that, Bruce, let me just ask Dan. Dan, they can build within the envelope without a variance.
No, that
They'd have to come back to us because the house is non-conforming.
yes, and they're in altering a non-conforming.
Right. Okay. So yeah, why don't you make that proposal to the applicants?
Yeah, so the question before for you to tell us is, would be acceptable to you if we separated your two variance requests for voting purposes tonight? Or, look, let's be straight to the point. Consensus is the porch is going to get approved, in my opinion. The deck, it could go either way. I don't know which way it's going to go. We could vote on it and you could take your chances. We could delay that question until the next meeting so you and your architect could consider the options. We could do whichever you'd rather us do. But at least would allow you, if the vote goes as I would expect it to go, to get started on the porch portion of your project. So you don't have to lose any time on that.
I think
Right.
that's very,
It's
very
your
reasonable.
call.
I
To
want to
us.
ask Dan a question. Is that okay?
Sure.
Dan, you mentioned about the deck because it's attached to a house that's non-conforming, that even if the deck were pulled back to the setback line, would it still need a variance?
Yes.
Because it's not adding to the non-conformity.
No, yes, you are. You will be altering a non-conformity.
Your alteration is conforming, but you're altering a non-conforming structure.
So if we were to reconsider the deck so that the alteration was not non-conforming. In other words, if we do pull the deck back to the setback line, then
the deck wouldn't need a variance, but you would still need a variance for the alteration of the enclosed porch.
oh, absolutely. Okay, that's what we were asking. So if we pull the deck back, I think, and Peter mentioned this earlier, if we pull the deck back to the setback line, but made it 1 foot deeper into the backyard, we could do that within the building department requirements and not have to come back to the zoning board.
Correct.
Okay.
So are you guys okay with us voting only on the variance for the porch?
Yeah.
Then Peter, along that line, I want to make a motion to approve the variance for the porch as requested with an understanding that the work has to proceed exactly as shown on the plans and drawings and specifications.
I'll second that motion. And specifically that we're excluding any discussion or variance for the proposed deck.
Yes, that's understood, I think.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? And that's unanimous.
And Mr. Chairman, I just want to make note for the record that you're also directing me to prepare a written decision reflecting the deliberations and vote of the zoning board on this matter. And
Yes.
that the written decision will be signed by you and filed with the village clerk with a copy of attached to tonight's minutes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if I may, Peter, just to the applicant, if you conform, good luck with the project. If you decide not to conform, you're welcome to come and present your case again.
Thank you so very much. We appreciate.
You know, and Dan can board if you want to come back.
We'll get you some rum drinks. in
Yeah,
the
we want you
kitchen.
to come over, Peter. And everyone's invited as well.
Okay, again, good luck to you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye. Okay, next up is 45 Northfield Avenue. And who'll be heard in this application?
I believe I've been unmuted, so you can hear me. Patty Steinschneider.
Even when you were muted, we could hear you back.
And there's a very dapper picture of you.
Well, I don't see anything. Okay, so I'm going to be cool.
Patty, you're muted.
Unmute. There. How about that?
Good. Is Ron here? Is he going to be
I think
promoted?
Ron is here, and it would make sense for him to be promoted too. He's an attorney and cares a lot about the way this is going to be done. And I don't want to say anything wrong and not have him be able to correct it.
Okay, let me just read the notice. To construct a new covered terrace patio, and maximum lot coverage by the building is 27%. The legal non-conforming lot coverage by the building is 28.11%. The proposed lot coverage by building is 37.44%, thus requiring a variance of 9.33% building coverage. And the max lot coverage for impervious surfaces is 54% currently, and they're talking about moving that up to 64.5%. And so that again is a variance.
Yeah. More, Peter, or can I make a quick comment?
Proposed impervious lots. This, I'm not sure this whole thing is very clear. Proposed impervious lot surface is 68.37%, requiring a variance of 3.69%. And you're going to have to walk us through a lot of stuff here, Patty.
Sure, definitely. Couple of things quick. The existing coverage is the one that you read. We're actually reducing the impervious coverage. So we've cut some of the existing paving and gotten it under it. So what we're really looking to do is we're decreasing the impervious coverage from 64.48% downward. Since we put in the application and submitted, we've gotten much further along in the detailing with the woodwork and the skylights and the other things that we want to have that, quite honestly, are not flexible in dimension. We've been able to tighten things up a bit. So what we're looking for at this point is we're reducing the impervious from 64.48 to 57.5%. So we'd be getting it much closer to the 54%. Similarly, we're reducing the building coverage. We've cut the size of the structure itself by about 100 square feet. So we're increasing it still from 1,933 to 2,431. We still need the variance, but the increase would be from 28.11% to 35.36%. Again, several percentage points below what was noticed and what was asked for. So that's, obviously we have to try and be the minimum we can be. We were able to tighten it up and get it down some. So those are the numbers that we'd be seeking the approvals on. If I can share the screen, I can walk you through all of that stuff.
Patty, the plan changed since you submitted to the building department?
It didn't really change. What it did is we tightened up the dimensions on it so that what we were dealing with, can work better.
Does
Here.
that create an issue where what we're looking at and what is on the resolution does not agree with what you want us to approve?
Only in terms of dimensionally. What the notice, as long as we're cutting from the notice, my understanding is that we're okay with the fact that we're able to do something that's smaller than what we asked for. Everything else is exactly the same. Where it is, it's really just a matter of we went with 2'3" skylights instead of 2'8". So what we were able to do is pull our structure spacing into 4 foot instead of what we had before. So when you actually put the numbers together, we have a slightly smaller footprint of what we're actually covering with the roof. The terrace almost stayed the same. It's the fact that the roof was really working with the structure of the existing house. But if I can take you through the proposal, I think you'll understand that much clearer after I've showed you stuff.
Part of my problem, Patty, is we have A1, sheet A1,
Yep.
which has the existing lot coverage and the proposed lot coverage, showing all kinds of changes, but we don't have any drawings that delineate these changes.
Well, you have the site plan that shows the terrace. Yeah, Peter, if I can take you through it, I think you'll see all that information. Can I do that?
Yeah, let's start and see.
Yeah, I'll try and be quick too. Okay, so here is the site of the property. It's on Northfield Avenue, north of where Ashford goes across the bridge. Here's the sawmill. Their property is on the corner of Moulton and Northfield. It's a larger lot than some of the lots in the neighborhood. There are others that are bigger, so it's kind of like in the middle. Here's showing where the subject property is on the Greenberg tax map. One of the things that they have that's nice is a much larger backyard than, just because quite honestly, it's because the house was older and built so far forward on the property, but they've got a nice sized backyard. So one of the things that's good here is that what we're proposing on adding isn't twisting anything with side yard setbacks or rear yard setback. Here's the survey of the property. And what this shows you is the asphalt driveway, a series of brick terraces that are already in the backyard, brick walks, and the house itself, which was renovated several years ago. Here's just a blow up of that so you can kind of see it. This was in your packet. Yep. Was the question?
Nope.
Okay. And here is the math that we're looking for at this point. The existing building coverage is 28.11, like you read, with 1,933 square feet. We're proposing increasing that to 2,431, which would result in a 35.36% site coverage for the building. The other component of this is the impervious. Right now, the impervious coverage on the house, on the property, is 4,433, which is 64.48. We've proposed tightening that up, getting rid of some of those other structures or the other paved areas and reducing it. So we'd be going to 3,951, which would reduce the impervious coverage to 57.5%. So it's a fairly significant reduction in that. And I would hope that we could get a variance to reduce a non-conforming situation. Just some quick photos showing it. The house here on the right is the front of the subject property. That's facing Northfield Avenue. Here's the corner. This is Moulton on the right. They've got a nice row of screening going down on their house. Here, now I've gone up Moulton. I'm looking back at the back of the house. This overhang on the second floor, that's where we're attaching to the house. And the idea here is that we would be coming out from this house approximately 16 feet, which is, they've got a very large backyard. So it doesn't come close to the driveway or any of that. It's actually fairly, it's actually just a little bit inside of where you see this black post. It's almost at the edge of where this existing brick kind of widened terrace area is. So we'd be building an addition on the back of the house. I'll show you that in a sec. Here's some more photos showing what that is. Here's the shot into where the property goes back further. It's kind of an L-shaped property. Nice play area for the kids. What I did here is I went on to Blanchard, which is the next street down, because you can see between the houses and look back. And I thought it was pertinent to show that nothing we're doing there is really going to affect the neighbor to the south. I think it's pretty clear that a structure here coming out isn't going to have any significant impacts. And this is just to give you some context of the subject properties here. This is looking north on Northfield. You see the texture of the neighborhood. There's lots of houses that are fairly close in. This is one of the houses that is close on the front, but quite open in the backyard. Here's looking north, or no, west on Moulton, whatever it is. This is looking south on Northfield. Here's the subject house. Kind of fits in with everything else. Then just two more shots showing the houses across the street on Northfield. These are the houses that are west of the house. This is the driveway that's coming in back behind where the house is to the left here off screen. And then this is looking across the street from 45 Northfield at the neighbors on the other side of Moulton. So here's where we are with the drawings at this point. We've obviously brought things up, anticipating the opportunity perhaps to go to the planning board and zoning board. So we've developed the drawings further. Here are existing condition drawings showing the back of the house, the side facing Moulton, the opposite side of the house facing the neighbor. We included enough of the plan showing that this is a family room kitchen on the back of the house. So what we're proposing to do is actually build out on the back of that, so that actually, if I go to the next one, it's even going to show it better. So the idea is to build out in the back of the house so that that kitchen family room has the stoop out to an area that's covered. It's really a terrace with a sunroof. It's not enclosed on the sides. It's very open. And we've intentionally kept the profile of the roof very low. So this isn't something that has a sense of mass. Here's where I'm able to show why we were able to tighten things up. The structure of this is timber and pin, large pieces of wood construction with skylights set in between the structural trusses. So with going with a smaller skylight, we were able to tighten that and reduce the area that we were increasing. The coverage of the house. This is a larger view of it. The components that go into this, it's a barbecue area with the service bar, exterior fireplace, plenty of room for people to sit around. It's a decent size. It's almost the same size as their existing kitchen and family room. So it's a nice space. It'll be pretty much 3-season. In fact, I could imagine if this was built, if my clients were nice enough to invite me over this weekend and watch one of the games outside, could be kind of fun. So here's what the structure we're proposing adding actually turns out to be. It's very, very simple. 2 rows of posts that carry a truss structure. As I said, totally open on the sides, skylights bringing light into the area below. So I think it's fairly straightforward and simple. It's very clean lined. It's not something that I think would have any aspects of it that would be impacts on the neighbor. And of course, what we're looking for here is a area variance with I was listening carefully to what you guys talked about earlier. That idea that if there were adverse impacts that would generate from this, that has to go on that balancing scale against what the benefits would be to the homeowner. And here I'd be surprised if anyone had any kind of a problem with this in any way, that we were casting shadows on them or blocking any views or creating something other than it could be a good place to hang out and talk. And we've heard the sensitivity of that, but I would point out that they are able to sit in their backyard and talk right now. So I don't think that would increase. In terms of actual impacts that we have to be concerned about is, we're reducing impervious, but right now, we're not, the water from that the impervious surface is not currently being picked up. So we're proposing that we would pick up the water. We would have a storm drainage system that would accommodate at least the water that we're, the additional impervious surface that we're adding. So I think we would be making things better for the neighborhood. And I think that, that's all the slides that I have on it. And if you have any questions.
Now, Patty, will there be leaders and gutters for the
Yes.
for the roof?
Yep.
And they'll go down into what, some kind of a storage area?
Yeah, we've already had Michael Stein from Hudson Engineering out. They've done perk tests. He's done an analysis of how many Caltech units we would need. Our idea is to have the gutters pitched back towards the house where there's already leaders coming down and tie in, although I noticed in our drawing, we don't actually, right here, there should be a nice little connection to that. And what we're looking at is that storm drainage system can really pick up, more water than just the roof we're creating. It'll improve things in general terms for the yard. Obviously, we don't want to have a mucky yard when people are trying to go outside and play in the yard. So, the idea is to do all of those things to make it, do it what it needs to do.
Right. And could you go over again the areas that currently are brick pavers and things like that you're removing?
Sure.
Is that the walkway all along Moulton?
No, we're keeping that walkway. So what we've got, there's the house, the second floor overhang, porch and steps on the front, the shed. We've kept the brick walk, the 298 square feet of the brick walk coming along there. What we've eliminated is areas of brick paving that are currently in the backyard. Those areas, 136 square feet in one area, 39 square feet in another. And, and there's more paving there than there really needs to be for the driveway. And there's a nice play area for the kids. So, we've taken that down too. So the idea was to look at everything that was on the site and eliminate any impervious surface that wasn't really necessary, while maintaining, still a nice kind of layout. If I get that, the wall, say what? Say again?
Could you show me on the driveway what you're going to remove? Because
this asphalt driveway is shown paved coming back to here. So we're, bringing that up. They'll still be able to park 4 cars in the driveway, but this will all be a nice grass area. We're taking out this brick paving area here, the brick paving area here, and here, as well as the stoop. Those are already there. So, we're covering over some of the area we're covering is impervious anyway. And as I'm pointing out, we're, from an impervious standpoint, I think we're doing a really good job getting us down from, 64% down to 57%. So, we've reduced it.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead, Jeremy.
Is there a
I'm sorry, quickly. Go ahead, Jeremy. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Is there a reason that the terrace has to be an impervious surface in the first place? Is there an option to use some kind of decking material that so that none of it would be impervious?
What makes it really impervious is the covered roof. The sunroof is what, if it wasn't for the sunroof, I think, I mean, Dan can correct me if, maybe since we'd be altering an existing non-conforming, reducing it, but still being non-conforming, would probably still have to get approvals. But everything we're doing is reducing it. It's the roof itself that covers that terrace that triggers the need for the storm drainage. Whether it makes sense to use brick pavers underneath that's something that we can study, but that wouldn't reduce our capture of water. And it's not like
Can you go back to the, Patty, I'm sorry, can you go back to the image of the driveway?
The photograph?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, see, this is what, is this all beyond here? That's all paved? Because it looks like it's not paved. And if I look at the Google Maps, it doesn't look like it was paved. And I drove by the other day and it was covered by snow and it didn't look like it was paved.
Yeah, what we have to go by is what we have on our survey. And either way, here, let me go back to the survey. The survey is showing this asphalt coming all the way back. And that's, that's done by the licensed surveyor. That's what we have to claim as the basis point. I mean, either way,
You're claiming changing it from asphalt to impervious, it's asphalt to pervious, but it's already pervious.
I really, when I was there, I know I saw asphalt coming over. I don't know how much of that is paved. We've gone by the survey and used that tabulation. Either way, it's the idea is that becomes grass. And we're actually trying to cut that back, as much as we can. I'd like to actually get 4 cars in there and have the space that we need for them, but not anymore.
I'm just saying that it's not grass. It is grass right now. It currently is grass. And this survey is from like 3 months ago. And
Yes, right.
it, for whatever reason, it's showing it as all asphalt, but it's not all asphalt.
Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry. This is we're the homeowners, the Jilka family. Yes, you're absolutely correct. That is grass and towards the rear. It ends where that line is, right by where the
This
100
line?
feet go. Yeah, that's exactly where the asphalt starts.
So this whole area has already been converted back to grass.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
But I believe what Patty was saying we will be reducing the asphalt driveway regardless to get to a less number.
Thank you.
I hesitate to ask, but are there any neighbors? Seems to often is the telling point.
Before we do that, just for clarity, Patty, so the 1760 of coverage for the driveway that we show as existing may have already been reduced.
Yes, it sounds like that has already been cut down. The 1760. I don't know if it's cut down as much as 1141 because I don't know exactly where that edge is at this point.
Right, but you're not proposing to cut the width of the driveway, only the length, which may or may not, which may have been already reduced.
Right, I wasn't putting it in as an aspect of this, but what the client and I have talked about is really, getting out there with the cars, seeing the space they actually need to be paved, and then, reducing the driveway as much as we can, because what we'd like to do is enhance the grass and the play area for the kids and have, better screening around the property and add some trees and shrubs. So, we wanted, I didn't want to represent that we were getting rid of driveway that we wouldn't then be able to, but the way we're looking at it is that 1,141 is max. And if we can get that down another 150 square feet or something, that would be great.
Okay. And another clarity that I'd like is underneath the canopy that the roof that you're building.
Right.
Once you have the roof on, it doesn't really matter whether it's pervious, impervious, or whatever.
Correct.
Because you're already impervious.
Right. And I don't have the sand or the audacity to suggest that if I made it a green roof, that I'd somehow be accomplishing anything from an environmental standpoint, because I'd still be interfering with where the water goes. So we're just treating that roof as 540 square, and that 540, that is the roof area. It's a little bit bigger, actually. That's the covered part of the terrace. It's a little bit larger than the actual terrace itself.
Right.
So we've just used what the roof area is what our delta has to address in terms of storm drainage.
Right.
So
Patty,
we're all
Patty.
going to agree that reducing impervious is good. So the real issue is we're increasing the lot coverage. And I guess that's really, if there's any questions, it should be, are we comfortable that the maximum lot coverage is being increased?
No, Bruce, I was just going to say that, Patty, you're going to have to submit new plans before the board votes on this.
Okay.
Because it's totally changed from what the application was.
Well, I mean, the drawings that
and what the plans are actually showing.
Right. The drawing, in other words, the drawings that we're showing tonight, you need to have those formally submitted to the village.
Correct.
Yep.
And even maybe a correct survey of
If
what's
there-
existing.
We'll check with the surveyor and see if that, yeah, that would make sense.
We couldn't, I don't think the board could really vote on this application.
Right, because Patty, as you know from past experience, we will approve, if we approve an application, it's that the project is built according to the plan submitted.
Yep. Definitely.
So this is useful because we have an understanding of the project and it'll be faster the next time. But I think as it says, we need the correct materials.
Well, it's also in the age of COVID, I'm getting to take a temperature. So it's like, you know, if I walked in and everybody starts yelling at me, I'd know we have one thing. But if the issue is getting everything exactly to the number, obviously I agree that has to be done. And you know, we've clearly done most of that work already. So there's no reason not to submit all that and give you the benefit of the complete drawings.
Right. But you can quarantine if you like.
Yeah.
Okay, if unless anyone else has anything, should we hold this over till next time?
If there's anybody who has strong consternation about it, I'd love to hear tonight, but otherwise, of course.
If anyone, Valerie or Henry, can you see if there's anyone from the community that would like to speak?
There's no attendees right now.
Okay. Okay, then.
Let me just say, I'd ask the same question I asked the previous applicant. I think we need to hear why staying within, you know, the lot coverage required by the zoning would not be feasible.
Okay. I mean, other than the fact that right now we're over on both already, so they would not be able to have this at all unless we got some variance. You know, I think that would be different if right now we were 25% coverage and we were asking for 30. You know, well, what would 27% compliant look like? But we're already 28.11%.
I guess I'm not following that completely, because it seems like it's the size of the roof, which you're sort of on a clean slate because there's no roof there at all now. So
right.
Why does the roof need to be the size it is and not a size that would conform to the lot coverage and the impervious surface restrictions?
Yep. I mean, that's something we can enhance the presentation on exactly what happens if you make this smaller. I mean, right now it's actually a lot of moving parts. That it's a very simple structure, but for example, we want to have this fireplace. We'd like to have it something that, you know, we could, you know, not commit to it only being gas. Maybe it would be, but if the chance that it would be wood burning, we have to be positioning our flue 10 feet away from the house. And that's the closest part of the flue. So we're already out about 14, 15 feet just to get to that point, where our goal is to have something that's very, very simple structure, where the structure itself is actually the design, the quality, the aesthetics. So it's a simple rectangular structure. If you get the fireplace where it is, you've got this size. You know, so it's really driven by the function of what they're trying to have in, you know, for entertainment in their backyard.
Patty, two things. Clearly, you just made the point of why we need the drawings, because it could change and we need to know what.
Sure.
The other thing is sometimes in the past, when we've had situations, and you've been probably part of some of these, we've done something in which you might have provided lot coverage on that block or surrounding blocks.
Sure.
Whether the percentage of lot coverage being requested, whether it's 31 or 35, whatever it ends up, is it typical for the neighborhood because of this, you know, the historic nature of it, or is it out of line? So
Yeah, definitely we can do that. In fact, I already kind of started doing that, but then I was thinking, not do it. I shouldn't do it until somebody asks that question. But for example, 38 Blanchard is over. It's almost 33%. 41 Blanchard's about 33%. So, there are a number of homes that are in this neighborhood where it's higher. Now, the reason I looked at those two is they're both big houses on big lots. I thought it's kind of cheating if I go and I find the 3,500 square foot lot and they're 35% with a very small house. I don't think it's the numbers that count. I think it's this is what we're doing, and I believe this is the test that you have to apply. Is what we're doing going to somehow feel like it's out of place, overbearing, intrusive in the neighborhood to a point where it feels like it's detrimental? If this is something that's really nice and everybody would say how beautiful, wonderful, and everything it is, then we're doing something good, and that test of those balance act, it's in our favor. So we can provide that information certainly.
Yeah, it's just useful in terms of the character of the neighborhood issue, and and I knew you knew. We've often done it, and I'm glad I asked you the question so you could do it in advance of the next meeting, so we don't have to.
Yeah, and I would try to make it complete in terms of nearby houses, both large and small.
Okay.
I would just go up and down the streets because, as you say, you're already over the max. So but that doesn't necessarily give you the ability to do anything, or the ability, you have to show us that this is within the bounds of the neighborhood.
Right.
But it's reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's reasonable?
But I would throw in one other thing that the reason, especially for the amount of impervious surface, is it's also an environmental issue, and I think we have to be sensitive to minimizing the sort of multiple environmental impacts of increasing the amount of impervious surface. So, so I think it's not just conformity to the neighborhood. It's there's a consideration independent of that, I think.
Yep. No, I agree. And that from the start, we've always, our goal isn't to try and do just enough that we meet it. It's like take advantage of the fact that we're doing something. So if we can make it better for the whole house, the whole property, by making it a little bit bigger, we'd want to do that.
Okay. Anyone have anything else?
I just wanted to address the issue about the environmental. What we were trying to do was something completely different, and one of the sacrifices we were about to make was removing some of the trees in the backyard, which we weren't really ready to do, and that's why we shifted it a little closer to the house. So there's about 3 beautiful trees, which when they bloom, and especially during the fall time, it looks absolutely stunning in the yard. So we didn't want to sacrifice that. That's why we intentionally try to move it a little closer to the house. Originally, it was going to be a structure that was away from the house, which, again, we would have had to sacrifice some trees.
Yeah. And one of the other things that perhaps you want me to show you, because I don't have it in this, is a landscaping plan to show how we're going to augment the landscaping that's there now and make that better as a result of this.
Again, yes, anything like that would help. Okay, so we will see you next time.
See us next time. And when's the deadline? It's like next week, probably, because we're going to February. Everything's short.
Oh, I don't know.
Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
It is on the village calendar, Patty.
Okay, I'm sure. We're already pretty much there. So, me finishing those things up, providing landscaping drawing, I think you'll have a nice set of drawings.
Okay, terrific.
Thank you much, guys.
We'll see you next time, Patty.
Thank you,
everybody.
Mike.
Move to close.
Second,
All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Okay, and thank you for the write-up, Valerie. You can send that to me whenever you have it done.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you very much. Okay, good night all.
Thank you all.
Good night.